Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com, and this is the YouTube show where you learn how to spot sociopaths, get them out of your life, and recover from the damage that they cause. This week, we're going to talk about sociopaths and double lives, which I'll get to in a moment. But remember, this is a live streaming show, and I'll answer your questions at the end, so please go ahead and send them to me by chat. Okay, let's get started. A reporter once called me to ask about people who live double lives. She wanted to know, why do they do it? Can they maintain double lives for a long time? And what are the dangers? Well, as you probably know, I have some experience with this. My ex-husband, James Montgomery, cheated on me with at least 6 different women during our 2.5-year involvement. He had a child with one of those women. And then, 10 days after I left him, he married the mother of the child, which turned out to be the second time that he committed bigamy. And of course, while he was doing all this, he took $250,000 from me, spending much of that money entertaining these other women. Now, of course, not everybody who lives a double life is a sociopath. Some people, like spies and undercover cops, are doing their jobs. But for all those people who don't have a legitimate purpose for creating an alternate existence, why do they do it? Well, I have some ideas about that, and today I'm going to share 4 possible reasons. Here's reason number 1, exploitation. Sociopaths are all social predators who live their lives by exploiting others. So when a sociopath lives a double life, I think the prime reason is probably because it enables him or her to exploit multiple people simultaneously. Just has a lot of people on the hook. Now, this is especially true of those parasites that sponge off of their romantic partners. I've heard of many cases in which sociopaths, both male and female, are involved in 2, 3, or even more romantic relationships all at once and taking something from all of their partners. Could be money, could be sex, could be cars, entertainment, whatever. Essentially, these sociopaths are looking for supply, and the more sources of supply they have, the better. Okay, here's reason number 2, promiscuity. Most sociopaths have a very high appetite for sex, amazing stamina, and they also get bored really easily. Consequently, what they really want in their sex lives is variety. So they hook up with a variety of people, in a variety of places, and engage in a variety of sex acts. Now, often, the sociopath's sexual partners, maybe that includes you, do not share these desires. But the sociopaths don't bother to tell you the truth about what they're doing. They simply pursue their sexual agendas with multiple people, but keep everybody separate. Sometimes this involves elaborate ruses and manipulation. Reason number 3 is the thrill of the game. Many sociopaths simply love getting over on people. They love getting away with the lies. They love telling wild stories and getting away with that. One expert called this duping delight. So here's an example from my own personal experience. One night, shortly after James Montgomery and I were engaged, he came to visit me. He was driving a strange car, and when I asked him whose car it was, he told me this elaborate story about how it belonged to a military buddy that needed the car brought up from Florida to New Jersey, blah, 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 blah. Well, the truth was that he had another woman staying with him for a week, and he drove her car to my house. I don't know the reason that he gave her for taking her car, but whatever it was certainly unnecessary. He could have driven his own car. So I believe Montgomery just wanted to take her car to visit me for the thrill of getting over on both of us. I've heard of other cases like this. Here's another one. A sociopathic woman brought one man that she was dating to a trade association dinner in which another man that she was dating was being presented an award. Why? For the fun of seeing one guy squirm and the other guy clueless. Okay, so here's reason number 4 for why sociopaths live double lives, and it is the mask of normalcy. What that means is that some sociopaths will hold a job, have a family, maintain a house, go to church, all to provide cover for their true pursuits, which could be drugs, sex, crime, perhaps even murder. This is how some famous serial killers operated, such as Dennis Lynn Rader, who was known as the BTK killer. BTK stood for bind, torture, and kill. This guy worked at a job, he was a church deacon, and he killed 10 people. He was married for 34 years, and his wife never knew of his outside activities. Even when they aren't killers, many sociopaths establish normal lives to make it easier to pursue their exploitative interests. Some sociopaths are also extremely concerned about their image. They want to keep their place in society, and having a spouse, a family, a job, and perhaps even a hot car all contribute to their status. Sociopaths can often maintain these double lives for many, many years. I've heard from plenty of women and men who were married 10, 20, 30 years, and then were shocked to discover that their husbands and wives were doing these terrible things throughout their entire marriages. I'm almost finished with the presentation, so if you do have any questions, please go ahead and send them now. So anyway, back to the inquiry from the reporter. She also wanted to know if it was dangerous for people to live double lives. Yeah, I suppose some sociopaths might face some danger, but in all honesty, I really don't care about them. However, the dangers to unknowing partners, perhaps like you, are extremely serious in many ways. Sociopaths often bleed their partners for money to fund their extracurricular activities. You can also contract diseases. In multiple love fraud surveys, 20% of respondents said that their sociopathic partners infected them with sexually transmitted diseases. In fact, I've reported on at least 2 cases of men who were convicted of intentionally transmitting HIV to unknowing sex partners. But even when you aren't physically harmed by the double lives of sociopaths, the psychological damage of betrayal is really profound. Discovering the truth leads to 2 kinds of shock. First is the shock at the callous actions of the sociopath, and then the personal shock that you experience because you were totally in the dark when all this activity was going on. So for you, recovery can be long and difficult. In the meantime, the sociopath simply moves on to another life. I hope you found this information to be helpful. It's based on one of the articles in my new book, which is called Understanding a Sociopath. It's right here. If you want to learn more about how sociopaths think and why they break the rules of life, you can pick up the book on Lovefraud.com or Amazon. So be sure to watch my Love Fraud show on YouTube Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. However, I won't be presenting any shows over the holidays, so the next show will be on January 7th. Be sure to tune in then. So let me see. Oh my goodness. Looks like we have lots of chats. I'll look and see if there are some questions here. Okay. I think the ex has a kid by the other woman. How can I find out? Well, That's really difficult. And one of the reasons is because a lot of vital records, which means birth, death, marriage records, are not always public information. In fact, in some states, it's illegal to get this information. And there is no central repository of birth information, death information, let alone divorce information. It's almost impossible to find out if somebody has ever been divorced. So a couple things you could do is look into the birth records in areas where you think he was. The other thing you might want to consider is a private investigator, because I think something like that, trying to find a child, could be really difficult. That's not an easy one at all, not impossible, but you might want to get professional assistance on that. So let's see if we have any other questions. Oh, Donna, did your ex stay with this new woman, or did he betray her as well? All he does is betray. So, I was not the only victim of my ex-husband, James Montgomery. In fact, when I divorced him, I had 3 other women, plus the parents of the wife before me who had passed away while they were married. They all testified at my divorce trial. And going through all the information that I was able to find on them, when I added it up, the money that he took from the 5 of us was over $1 million. He actually didn't take money from the one that he had a child with, but he did cheat on her, and she eventually found out that her marriage was bigamy, because she came back, and they went to Australia. She came back to the United States. She sent for my divorce records and found out that he had married her 10 days after I left him. So it was a totally bigamous marriage. Plus, he had actually been involved with her throughout our entire marriage, throughout the marriage of the woman before her, and maybe even longer than that. There were other relationships. So, I mean, the guy was juggling multiple women at all times. I mean, literally at all times. And I didn't realize this until I left him and started going through all the papers that I found of his. In fact, if you want to know the whole story, get my book, Lovefraud.com, the first book that I wrote, because it explains everything that happened. It reads like a cross between a true crime novel and a spiritual journey. It's quite the story. But I tell it all there, and it's really good reading. All right, so let's see what else we have. How do you catch them? Oh, well, depends what you want to catch. Maybe you could clarify that. If you're looking to catch them in the act, I mean, you can do what they do. You can start checking their emails. You could, get a GPS tracker. You can do all this stuff. It can be difficult. It all depends on what it is that you want. And the key when you're going after a sociopath is, first of all, to figure out whether or not it's really worth your trouble. It all depends on your personal situation. Do you have children with this person? Has he taken your money? Does he have any assets? So there's lots and lots to go into the decision of whether or not you even go after someone. If you believe that the person is disordered, sometimes it's better to just walk away and just cut your losses and go. So it all kind of depends on what your situation is. But it's real important to carefully consider what is best for you. Is it best for you to go after? Because sometimes it is important, or sometimes you have to do it to protect yourself. If not, if what you've lost is maybe just your pride and maybe some money that can be recovered, it might be best just to forget about it and move on. Okay, what else do we have? Yeah, Monica says, beware of elaborate stories. That's absolutely true. Okay, someone says they want to get DNA samples, but don't know if it's legal. Not sure. You'd have to look in your state. Okay, CC is me says, these people self-destruct. Has Montgomery yet? Well, I would say yes. After I launched Lovefraud.com, he had moved to Australia, and I found out, I finally found him because I had gotten a judgment in my divorce for $1 million. Not that I was ever able to collect it, but I did track him down back to Australia, which is where he was from, and essentially blew his cover there because I wrote about him on Love Fraud. And one of the other things that he did was pretend to be a military veteran when he was not. He was another story, that elaborate ruse that he was propagating for years. So essentially his cover was blown, and then what happened was the wife that I talked about divorced him, and then he was trying to find more women online, but every time they Googled his name, they came to Love Fraud and found out that what his true story was. And I know of at least 6 or 7 different women who Googled his name, found his story on Love Fraud, and then dumped him. So at this point, he's very old and very ugly, and I doubt he's able to pull this off anymore. So he did destruct, ended up, I mean, he's living off some paltry pension, I think, in Australia, and I honestly don't know where he is. Haven't talked to him ever since I left him. Okay, what else do we have? Oh dear, X took $1 million from me. Yeah, that's rough. Okay, Terry says, I want to take him to court for reimbursement. Should I? I actually have a book coming out on January 3rd. It's the third in the series of these, which is called Dealing with a Sociopath. And that's one of the things we talk about is in this upcoming book is what exactly do you do in these situations? And the key is, does the guy have any money? I mean, if he doesn't have any money, because, most sociopaths live on smoke and mirrors. So if he doesn't have anything, then there's no point. I mean, I actually got this $1 million judgment, and I collected a grand total of $517. I mean, I was convinced that he had money. I was convinced that he had it squirreled away in international accounts. I actually hired an international agent to try and find it. There was nothing. He blew it all. And so that's the key decision. There's several key things, but the first one is, does the guy have any money? And if he does, or if he has a job, or if he has any kind of assets, then there's a possibility. But if there's nothing, you're throwing good money after bad, because you probably have to retain a lawyer to sue him or whatever, and that's going to cost you money, and it's very complicated. But the key is, does he have anything, and do you have the assets to go after him? Okay, what else do we have? Donna, did you have children with your ex? Turn out like him. Luckily, I did not. God was watching out for me on that one. We were trying and never happened, probably because I was too stressed to get pregnant. But no, I did not have children with him, and I am forever grateful for that, because yes, that's the problem when you have relations with a sociopath, is that one of the possibilities is children, and this condition is highly genetic. So it can turn out to be very bad, but it didn't happen to me, and I'm very grateful for that. Okay, so Tammy says, Donna, I appreciate all you do and wonder how you are able to share your story so openly without facing legal repercussions for defamation. Well, because I took my ex-husband to court and got a judgment for $1 million, and the judgment said that he had committed fraud. I have court documentation of what he did. And so I was able to tell the story because everything that I tell, first of all, is true, and second of all, is documented. And in his case, he also just walked away. I mean, he just kept telling lies about me, and every time he met a new woman and she found the website, oh, that's my fifth wife, and you know, she's just trying to make trouble and everything. But the fact of the matter was that I did have a court judgment against him, and the $1 million judgment, so he never came after me. But it is difficult, and that's another topic that I address in my upcoming book, Dealing with a Sociopath, is what to do when you want to expose a sociopath, because I did expose him. And for me, it was worth fighting him and worth getting that judgment, because that allowed me to build Love Fraud and expose him and tell this whole story, which is helping all of you. Okay. Here's a question. Do sociopaths need supply all the time like narcissists, and are they able to be alone? Well, let me clarify the terminology a little bit, which if you look at some of the other videos, I explain in more detail. But when I use the word sociopath on Love Fraud, I'm using the word sociopath as an umbrella term to cover the actual personality disorders, which are antisocial, narcissistic, histrionic, borderline, and psychopathic personality disorders. Those are possible official diagnoses. The word sociopath is not an official diagnosis anymore. Most people, most professionals understand it to be a synonym for antisocial personality disorder, but it's actually this word that no longer has a meaning. In fact, the original meaning was anybody who is socially sick, and so that's how I'm using the term. So narcissists and sociopaths are very similar, and in fact, narcissism is a component of antisocial personality disorder. That's one of the traits, and it's also a component of psychopathy. So they're almost the same. It's more a matter of degree. Like narcissists hurt people because they are clueless and don't realize that they're hurting people, whereas antisocial personality disordered people can do it on purpose. But they all want people around them because that's where they get their supply. I mean, there's another miscommunication with antisocial personality disorder, because people think the word antisocial means you're a hermit, and that's actually not the case. Antisocial means that you're against society, and so these people definitely want to be around others because that's how they thrive. They're bloodsuckers. They leech onto people. So yes, they want to be around other people. Okay, what else do we have? Mary Shep says, what do all those disorders have in common? What they have in common is that the people who have these disorders live their lives by exploiting others. So, I mean, this is what they do. They all are taking advantage of other people. That none of them truly have the ability to love. They're what is called externalizing disorders. And what that means is that they act out on other people, as opposed to people who might have anxiety or depression. When that's an internalizing disorder, that means that you feel it yourself and you're sad and everything. But the people who have these personality disorders, it affects their relationships with others. Typically, they are very self-centered. They are only concerned about themselves. They do not have the ability to care for other people. And they're just, the worse the disorder is, the more exploitative they are. So that's what the disorders have in common. Okay. All right. Well, that appears to be all of the questions that we have. So I thank you, everybody, for joining us. Keep in mind that I'm taking a break for the holidays. I'll be back on January 7th with the next Love Fraud Live. So wishing you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and see you in a couple of weeks. Talk to you later.